We would like to thank your sponsor, Valley First, a division of First West Credit Union and a member-owned financial cooperative serving the Okanagan, Similkameen, and Thompson regions. They offer a wide range of banking and investment services for individuals and families. Valley First also has a talented business and commercial team to provide the expertise, products, and services local businesses need to grow and thrive.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Business Matters presented by Valley First, a division of First West Credit Union. My name is Rob Capello, and today we welcome Curt Reimer to Business Matters. Curt, thanks for joining me today.
You are very welcome, Rob. Great to be here.
No problem. So Curt is the branch manager at Valley First in Vernon. And today we're going to talk about the changing landscape of retirement. So we all know there's been rising costs, economic volatility. So retirement looks a little bit different today than it did potentially 20 years ago. So we want to explore some of the questions that people might have, and hopefully we can give them some answers and some guidance. But before we do, I'd love to just chat a little bit about I'm always curious, I usually check in with you guys once a month, and I'm curious what's going on with members. What are you hearing from members? I know there's a lot out there, a lot of media, things, interest rates and economy. What are you hearing from your members right now?
That's a great question, Rob. I mean, yeah, there's always a lot of things on people's minds. The biggest thing in the last year has been the rise of interest rates, and typically in regards to mortgage lending.
Right.
We went in 2023, we had a prime rate that started the year out around 2.5% and got up to about 7.2 over the course of 1 year, which has been a wild ride for a lot of folks, particularly if you had a variable rate mortgage.
Right.
The flip side of that is it's been a very interesting year, say around investments, term deposits, that kind of thing, because as a result, in the market, mutual fund or stock market, things have been somewhat volatile because the rising interest rates mean that term deposits for the first time in years have been a very viable, safe alternative to park money and earn a somewhat decent return.
Interesting.
Not always the best way to go.
No,
However, it was something that, rather than paying 1.5%, we were actually up around 5.5. So
interesting.
It's interest rates. It's been an interesting year.
Interesting. So you're a branch manager in Vernon. Yes. What does that role entail? Like, what does day to day look like for you?
Oh, that's a great question. It's, I started out my career, of course, advising as well. So I was also, the one kind of giving advice and working on mortgages and investments and working with members directly. And there's part of that in my current role. And I do love that. I love talking to members, to people, and jumping in and helping where I can. But this role is a lot more about supporting our team of advisors. So I spend a lot of time coaching. I spend a lot of time working in compliance, making sure that the branch is running smoothly, making sure that, of course, our members are having a good experience when they come in and work with us. So it's less hands-on and more of a support role for whether members need support or, of course, the advisors in the branch.
Interesting. So how long have you been at Valley First? You said you were an advisor. How long have you been there?
This is my 11th year with Valley First and 16th in working with credit unions in general here in BC. Yeah, so I'm a lifer.
So before you joined Valley First, you were working with another institution, another credit union?
Yep. Yeah.
In the Okanagan, or did you make the move to the Okanagan?
No, I was born and raised out around Winfield and Kelowna, and always kind of worked around.
That's pretty cool. So I'm curious, I always wonder, what originally attracted you to sort of the banking world, the financial world, like getting out of school? Like, what was it in the family, or what did you see? How did that connection come about for you?
Yeah, I right out of school, right out of high school and kind of into college, I did work, of course, retail stores and just kind of was going around trying to, stay afloat, of course.
Yeah.
And funny enough, the story is I ran into a friend of mine. I was just kind of figuring out where I wanted to go with my career. And I ran into a buddy in Kelowna, and he worked for a credit union. And we had previously worked together. And I said, so how is it? How's life? What's going on? And he said, Curt, you have got to come and work for the credit union.
That's cool.
They're a great place to work. They take care of their people, and you will learn. You will learn things that apply to your life, because we all need a lot of different 100%. Advice, or we might have questions, or we don't always understand the financial world. But when you work there, you kind of work adjacent to that. So you get a lot of that education and training that you can apply to your own life alongside doing meaningful work for members. So I got a job right away, started as a teller, and just
Working
kind of
it.
stuck with it. So
Love
16
it.
years later, and he was right. It's been a great career, and I kind of always had a, I mean, it's very nerdy, but I always enjoyed working with budgets and numbers and that kind of thing. And now I get to apply it every day.
Love it. I have to say that I was looking at your LinkedIn profile and I saw that you worked at A&B Sound.
Yes.
And I remember, so
Yes.
I was born and raised in Kamloops.
Yeah.
So A&B Sound was our big drive because we never had, so we
Oh my
drive to
gosh.
Kelowna so we could
Yes.
load up on all these things at A&B Sound. So that's pretty funny that when I saw it on your profile, I'm
Yeah.
like, oh my gosh, I remember spending a lot of money there.
A Canadian institution. Yes, absolutely.
Uh,
Those were wonderful times working at A&B for sure.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about retirement or maybe lack of retirement for some, but I'm curious, like we were talking about before we got on, like retirement is it looks different today than it did even 20 years ago.
Mhm.
In what
Yeah.
ways have you noticed that? In what ways have you seen sort of what retirement means today and compared to 20 years ago?
Yeah. There's a lot of ways. There's a lot of things that I could share. I think one of the biggest things is the way that retirement savings are provided, if that's the
Right.
right word. So I'm talking about pensions.
Right,
For a
right.
lot
Okay.
of companies, for a lot of different, workplaces,
Right.
the idea of working for an organization for your career for say
Yeah.
30 years and then retiring with a fully funded pension
So
is
valuable.
really an idea from the past. And
Mm.
not only that, but from an employee's point of view too. There is a lot less staying long term with an employer where you're earning that long term pension and
Right.
jumping around through different employers through your career, which is totally fine.
Sure.
But that means that a lot of the responsibility and a lot of the planning that has to go into retirement has been offloaded to the individual. So you really have to make sure you are setting aside retirement savings in the place of an old-fashioned pension that's going to give you a guaranteed income in retirement,
Right.
till you pass away.
Yeah.
You have to figure out what will the sources of income be in my retirement and how am I going to provide for those. And I think what that means is that a lot of folks, a lot of individuals need that education. You need to work with someone who can help you provide your own retirement because it's not being provided there for you. I think one of the other changes is just the idea of retirement. And I like talking about this with people because I feel that the old idea was I'm going to work, 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 work. And then when I get to that point, when I hit that retirement date, then I go home Friday after work and I wake up Monday and I'm now retired.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and it's a new world and I have to figure out what I'm going to do with my time and financially. Retirement now seems to be more like a phase that people are easing into. And
Right.
for a lot of reasons, it's not so much I'm going to stop working as I'm going to reduce how much I work because I like working. A lot of people might work in a specialized field, and there aren't a lot of people coming in behind them to fill that hole that they're leaving behind. So their employer might ask them to stick around but work part-time or do contract work. So it's
Interesting.
almost like the idea of retirement has changed among people because they still want to get up and go out and do things. And I think the last point that I wanted to make was because uh, people are healthier and we're living longer. And
Right. Right.
back not, yeah, I don't want to be cynical, but I
No,
think back, many
no.
20 years ago,
Yeah.
the idea that you retired at say
Right.
65 years old, you
Right.
might have been planning for a 15-year or a
Yeah.
20-year
Yeah. Yeah.
retirement,
Yeah.
whereas now perhaps people are thinking of retiring earlier, but they also need to provide for living a little bit longer, being healthier, which
Interesting.
means there's a much longer time that people aren't traditionally working. They have to provide for. So
Yeah, it's interesting.
in those ways.
And it's not all financial based, like, right? I think things have just changed, like
Yes.
you said, like people are living longer or
Yeah.
just, things have changed and a lot of people I know they're at that age, quote unquote, whatever that age
Yeah.
is that they're just slowing down. They're still working. They love what they do. They're working remotely now so they can
Yeah.
travel and so they're not officially, like you said, I like that you're almost transitioning into retirement. So
Yeah.
which brings other complexities and why the value of working with a team like yourself, because there's other complexities that come out of that too, right? So
Absolutely. Oh
interesting.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
what about people that are like, you guys have younger, all different types of members. So you're looking at younger generation. what are you hearing about how they're feeling about retirement? Are they feeling like, wow, we're going to have to work forever? Like we can't afford a home. We have to work forever. Like, are you hearing that
Yeah.
from, or is it the opposite where they're like, they're okay with it? They're okay not owning a home and they're okay not, like, what are you typically hearing from some of the younger
Yeah.
generation?
Yeah, a lot of various things. I think it leans a little bit more towards fear and uncertainty around the future. Like you mentioned, home affordability is the biggest thing
Right.
that I personally would hear from some younger members, and so we're not focusing on retirement. Like
Right.
I don't and I don't want to speak for everybody, but I think a lot of folks aren't really worried about 40 years from now
Right.
when they were looking for somewhere to live in the first year. So
Valid.
that's something that I think is on a lot of people's minds. However, to that point, and in terms of retirement, I really want to outline how important it is, I guess. So it's almost like this is my PSA. Uh, don't forget about it. And I say that coming from a very, very lucky place where, like I said, I've worked within financial services for a long time and from a very, very young age. I think I was 21 when I first started working at the credit union. And right, one of the first things that my boss had said at the time was, "So Curt, tell me about your retirement savings." And I said, "My what now?"
Yeah.
And she was really, really, really good about just giving me some very easy, approachable advice of, it's something, I don't care if it's $25 paycheck, you have to start with something
Something.
and make sure that you're putting it away. And over the long term, it's going to grow and provide for you. And at the time, I didn't really understand the why, but I did it. And today I'm glad I did it. And I pivoted and changed my approach because not just retirement, but I think investing. When I think of
Right.
younger folks
Right.
and people who are kind of learning these concepts and getting into it, there is a lot of noise and a lot of information that is flooding us around investing, period. And
Right.
it's what kind of investments to purchase. Do I need to work with a financial institution or an advisor? And and I'll agree, maybe not always, because I feel
Sure.
like some of the advice out there is, oh no, you can do this on your own. You can
Right.
absolutely do this on your own. Which is, if you can, great. I don't think that's always the wrong thing to do. But then, like I mentioned earlier, the second thing I hear from a lot of folks is, and it's also scary and hard to do. It's like, well, you can do it on your own, but it can't be done, or contradictory statements. It can be done.
Right.
Um, but working with an advisor will probably give you that advice that's not as exciting as, this is the hot thing to invest in, or if you buy some of this, you're going to double your money.
Right.
Um, some of the advice I was given, and I repeat it, is investing and building, whether it's for retirement, for a home, for a car, for your future children's education. Believe it or not, it's not going to be this exciting, sexy
Yeah.
thing. And
Yeah. Yeah.
it's slow and steady.
Yeah.
If you know what you want to achieve and you work out a budget and you
Yeah.
know how much you can put into it and how much you can put aside in savings every month or every paycheck, and you do that consistently in something that's going to, grow and be diversified, by the time you get to retirement, if that's your goal, that's, if even if it's 35 years later,
Right.
you are going to have a retirement. It doesn't have to be this kind of crazy
Right.
thing. But the point is to start and to just do it, even if it seems daunting, is you
Interesting.
can take baby steps.
Right. It's interesting as you're talking, like there's this like old wisdom, I guess, is the, like, the 4% rule, or
Yeah.
you need to save X amount in order to retire with this much. Are those sort of things valid today still, or is it, or do you, or something more customized more important? Like how do you, and then maybe not everything for everybody, but does
Yeah.
I love how you're saying, like, sometimes just start with something, 25 bucks,
Mhm.
whatever, and everyone's different. But
Yeah.
how do you balance sort of like the rules that you've been taught growing up until what it looks like today?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that advice could be valid because within that advice is the concept of just start.
Right.
Just
Right.
get
Fair
something
enough.
going.
Right. Right.
And but yeah, there used to be these mathematical equations: take 4% of your income and set it aside,
Right.
or in retirement you want to have 70% of your pre-retirement income to live off of. Um, I still think these concepts can be a good basis, a good
Right.
starting point,
Right.
because again, it means just to have an idea of what you want. But especially, you're right now with well, with anyone, but with younger people who are maybe coming through and looking at retirement, retirement's going to look so different.
Different.
Where I think you need to stop and actually envision what do I want retirement to look like for me? For some, it might be traveling, and it might be
Right.
having a vacation property, or it might be a sport, or playing a lot of this or that, or like I said, we're healthier. We can perhaps do more. It might be seeing family who are healthy.
Right.
If that's what you envision retirement looking like, that's great. But now you have the end goal, and you're going to have to fund that, and it's going to cost a certain amount of money. And when you're kind of putting a plan together at 25 years old, how much do I have to start stowing away in order to
Yeah.
make that a possibility?
Interesting.
For retirement, it might be, what, I live where I like to live. I plan to pay off my home, and I like to be home. And for me, traveling is going for a hike in a local provincial park. That's going to take less of a financial commitment, but it might be just as happy for
Yeah.
you as a retirement.
Interesting.
I don't I feel like that's kind of a gray answer, but it's almost like how much am I going to need for this thing? And
Yeah.
it's like, well, what's the thing?
Yeah, it
Like
depends what it
what are
is.
you
Yeah.
looking for? Are
Yeah.
you looking to purchase a sedan, or are you looking to buy a Lamborghini? And then
Yeah,
we have to
yeah.
figure out exactly what. And just so you know, the sedan is just as suitable for
Sure.
a lot of people. Like, it's
100%.
totally fine.
100%. Interesting. You also mentioned earlier about sort of the nowadays there's more access to like financial technology, right? There's this
Yeah.
online investment platforms, AI advisors, there's all this sort of thing in there. And I'm wondering, like, from your perspective, do you see those tools as beneficial or detrimental for people that are like, do you find like, well, like you mentioned, well, I can do it myself. And I'm like, but are you getting sound advice? Are you getting the right advice? Are you like, if you're using some of those tools that are online?
Yeah. I think that, and you know what, I don't want to speak like an expert on some
No,
of the
sure,
technology and the AI piece, because I really don't know a lot about that per se.
for sure.
There's a concept, and it is like we call it robo advice. So there's
Mm,
the idea that you can work with some investment firms, and they will offer kind of these set portfolios
right.
that you
Okay.
can purchase. They will automatically rebalance. You don't have to
Mm,
really make any decisions. So if your risk profile comes out as very low risk or
right.
medium
Right.
risk, or you're okay with some volatility, there will be a portfolio kind of created for you that will fit that risk profile, give you the returns as
Right.
such. And again, they're just kind of done, you know, automatically. So you're not working with, say, a fund manager, you're not working with an advisor, there won't be an advice component. Those types of programs are fine. I would say typically for
Interesting.
someone who's starting out, for someone who just wants to get into the market and they would like an investment account, but they're really just starting out with their first RSP, or maybe they
Right.
just want to open an RESP for, say, kids,
Yeah.
and they just don't want to have to worry about it, or
Mm,
it's not quite as long term. So robo advice is fine. It's something that you can sleep at night knowing you're not going to be completely offside with what you're holding, and it's likely going to give you a consistent return.
interesting.
But moving on from there, for sure, I do think that working with someone, I mean, the cost is not huge, right? I think there's an
Right.
idea
Right.
that, well, they're going to take a bunch of your money, um, you know, and of course we could go down that rabbit hole,
Sure.
but
Yeah.
they're not. The
Yeah.
truth is, within this whole world of financial services, there are things that will help you reach your goals,
Right.
and there are people who will help you reach your goals, and you will reach your goals, and
Yeah.
all of
Yeah.
those things will of course be paid, and that's kind of the way that industry works. But at the end of the day, and speaking from my perspective and our
Yeah.
perspective, the most important thing is the member in front of us, and that
Yeah.
they are
Yeah.
getting the advice
Fair
they
enough.
need and hitting the financial milestones that they need.
Fair enough.
And we work with them like a partner to do that.
Interesting. So what if someone's listening and they're like, I think I'm nearing retirement, but I haven't really put as much time into saving that I should have. Like, what can they do? Is it too late? Like, what are some key things that they could look at as they're maybe getting there and going, oh man, I should have done more.
Yeah, it's never too late, and I don't mean that to sound glib like a soundbite. It's never too late. It will impact what that looks like. It'll
Sure.
impact what retirement looks like. But if you're kind of looking, ooh, I'm not 30 years away, I'm
Right.
10 years away, and thinking, I don't know if I've prepared enough. That'll take a real look at your
Right.
current life, current lifestyle, current assets where you're
Yeah.
at. Who knows? Retirement might look a little bit differently. It might look like you're having to downsize. It might look like, or for the next 10 years, we can have that real honest conversation and say, it's time to really buckle down. We're going
No,
to
no more
trim everything.
Starbucks.
No more Starbucks. I know you hear that a lot. No more Starbucks. Cut back on the coffee. We're going to cut back. We're
Right,
going to set
right.
a budget in place, and we're going to say we will aggressively start putting some money away. And here's what a projected retirement fund will look like, and how much income you'll get every month from it. It may not be quite as much, but if you trim on this end and maybe trim expectations on this end, it'll still be a retirement. And there are other avenues to receive retirement income from, your CPP, your OAS will be there. Amounts vary depending on work history. And do you have other pensions? Like I said, with people moving from different jobs and different industries, perhaps throughout their career, sometimes they might have had a pension with a previous employer that they forgot about. So
Right.
sometimes going back through employment history and finding what we call those orphan pensions and helping
Right.
to consolidate those for them might help. It just takes a conversation.
Well, and I think that the important part of what you're saying is like, it's good just to know, like, because
Yeah.
the worst thing is you come and you're
Yeah.
like, now it's time to retire, and I didn't plan at all. Even if it's the last 5 years, 10 years, at least, like you said, there's expectations and there's things that you can start. You might have to make a little bit of a change in your life in order to get what you want when you retire. So I think just getting to know what it might look like is important as well. So on that, if someone is, we've covered a lot today, but if they want to learn more, they want to discuss about their retirement and they have questions and maybe we haven't answered them all, obviously, is what can they do? What should they do? How do they reach out to someone from your team, or is there resources they can go look at? What do you recommend for people that are there?
For sure. Yeah. I mean, you can absolutely pop into a branch. If you just check out our website, valleyfirst.com, there's a lot of contact information for any branch. But I would say, don't be afraid to just get in touch with someone. I mean, we are, speaking for my team, of course, and I know that that's true of all of our branches. We are happy to spend some time in an appointment and we're just chatting and answering questions and giving advice. And, sometimes it's just the start of something that can last a little bit longer and again, help you get where you want to be. But, whether it's online, we have, several different branches. We just phone in through and book an appointment through our 1-800 number, the call center. And yeah, we're always happy to get together and just start the conversation.
That's great. Well, Curt, thank you so much for taking the time to talk today. I know the meaning and the means for retirement have changed over the last 20 plus years, but I think you provided some really good advice. And I always say, I encourage people, like, your team is so great at Valley First. Like, if you have questions, reach out. Like, it's simple as that. Because I know we can't cover everything in a 20-minute conversation, but hopefully we gave some value and maybe just gets people thinking, and reach out to your team and have those questions. Because like you said, I think everyone's different, what they want out of retirement. And that's what the important part is, to talk to someone to help plan that. So thank you so much for sharing some advice.
Thank you, Rob.
So, if you enjoyed today's episode, please leave us a review and share the podcast with your friends. We can get the word out. And until next time, thank you for tuning into Business Matters, and have yourself a great day. Thanks, Curt. I really appreciate it.
Awesome. Yeah. Thanks, Rob.
Take care, man. Bye.
Okay. Take care. See ya.
We would like to thank your sponsor, Valley First, a division of First West Credit Union and a member-owned financial cooperative serving the Okanagan, Similkameen, and Thompson regions. They offer a wide range of banking and investment services for individuals and families. Valley First also has a talented business and commercial team to provide the expertise, products, and services local businesses need to grow and thrive.